Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going deep. I mean, really deep. We're going inside your own body to meet the elite task force that's on duty 24/7, protecting you from everything. We're talking about your immune system. So let's just jump right in with the one question your immune system has to get right every single second of every single day. Friend or foe? Because if it gets that wrong, things can go sideways fast. The real question is, how on earth does it know the difference? It all comes down to one single fundamental mission. Your body has to draw a crystal clear line in the sand. On one side, there's self. That's you, all your cells. And on the other side, non-self. That's literally everything else, whether it's a harmless bit of dust or a nasty virus. And the foundation for this whole operation is a concept called tolerance. But here's the crazy part. This isn't something you're just born with, like it's hardwired into your genes. Nope. Your immune system actually learns who you are. It gets trained from day one to recognize your body's unique signature. And when I say it learns, I mean it becomes a super recognizer. It is so ridiculously precise that it can spot the 0.1% difference in DNA between you and me. To your immune system, that tiny difference might as well be a giant flashing neon sign that says, "Intruder!" And this is where things get really tricky in the real world, like with medicine. This is exactly why organ transplants get rejected. Think about it. To your immune system, that life-saving kidney from a donor, it doesn't see a gift, it sees a foreign invasion. And it does what it's supposed to do. It attacks. Not because it's malicious, but because it's just following its programming. Okay, but what happens when that recognition system makes a mistake? When that clear line between self and non-self gets all blurry? Well, that's when the immune system can turn on itself. It can start attacking the very body it's supposed to defend. And that's what we call autoimmune disease. You see things like antibodies going after the thyroid or cells destroying the part of the pancreas that makes insulin, which is what causes type 1 diabetes. All right, so now we get the basic mission. Know thyself. Let's meet the first part of this task force, the heavy hitters. These are the B cells. You can kind of think of them as the long-range weapon specialists, the ones who create these incredibly precise guided missiles called antibodies. So, how does this army actually get going? This is the really clever part. Your body doesn't sit around trying to invent a new weapon from scratch every time a new germ shows up. That would take way too long. Instead, it has this enormous library of millions of different B cells just waiting around, and each one is already pre-programmed with a unique weapon. When an invader gets in, it just bumps around until it finds the one B cell that's a perfect match, and when it finds it, bam, that B cell gets the order to start cloning itself, creating a whole army of identical cells to pump out that one perfect antibody. Then these antibodies just swarm the invader. Sometimes they can disable it directly, but one of their coolest jobs is a process called opsonization. It's a fancy word, but all it really means is that they coat the enemy, basically painting a giant "eat me" sign on it. This makes the bad guy way more obvious and way more tasty for the cleanup crew of the immune system, the big eater cells called phagocytes. But there's a catch. This antibody army, it has a major blind spot. They're fantastic out in the open, in your bloodstream or the spaces between your cells. But they can't get inside your cells. And that's a huge problem, because where do things like viruses love to hide and do their damage? Right, inside your cells. So for an inside job, you got to call in a totally different kind of specialist. And that brings us to the special ops division of your immune system, the T cells. These are the spies. The assassins. They're the ones who deal with enemies that have already gotten past the gates and are hiding inside your own cells. And here's where it gets really interesting, because these two groups see the enemy in completely different ways. A B cell can spot a virus just floating around by itself, no problem. But a T cell, it's completely blind to that. It can't see the bad guy directly. It relies on your own cells to act like informants, to basically tell them, hey, something's wrong in here. So how do your cells snitch on an invader? They use a system called the MHC, or Major Histocompatibility Complex. The best way to think about it is like a little display case on the surface of every single one of your cells. Your cells are constantly taking bits of whatever proteins are inside them, chopping them up, and putting a little piece on display in that MHC case. It's like a constant status report for any passing T cells to check out. And this idea of the display case brings us right back to organ transplants. See, a T cell doesn't just inspect the little protein fragment being shown, it inspects the display case itself. And if that display case, the MHC molecule, looks foreign, the T cell doesn't care what's inside it. A foreign MHC from a transplanted organ looks exactly the same to a T cell as one of your own MHCs holding up a piece of a virus. The signal is identical. This cell is not right. It needs to go.
Now, this T-cell Spec Ops team isn't just one type of soldier. It's actually made up of two very different specialists, and they work together perfectly to control the fight.
First, you've got the CD4 T cells. We usually call these the helper T cells. Think of them as the generals, the battlefield commanders. They don't do the dirty work themselves, but they're the ones who give the orders and coordinate the entire attack, even calling in the B-cell army we talked about before. Then you have the CD8 T cells, the killer T cells, and their name says it all. They're the frontline assassins who get the order to take out infected cells one by one. And how a killer T cell does its job is, well, it's pretty hardcore, but also incredibly elegant. It doesn't just carpet bomb the area. It latches onto an infected cell, and first, it uses these proteins called perforins to literally punch holes in the cell's outer wall. Then, through those holes, it injects another set of enzymes called granzymes. And these enzymes are basically a command. They tell the infected cell to initiate its own self-destruct sequence. It's not a messy explosion. It's a clean, controlled demolition. Okay, so winning the battle is obviously a huge deal. But that's not even the most incredible part of the story. The most amazing thing about this entire system isn't just that it can win, it's that it remembers. It never forgets an enemy. Think about it. The first time your body fights off a new bug, it's a slow, grinding process. It has to figure out what's going on and build up a defense. But the second time that same bug shows up, whoa, the response is massive. It's faster, it's way stronger, and it lasts longer. The system is already primed and waiting. The memory cells are on standby, ready to unleash a massive counterattack almost instantly. And this single idea, this concept of immunological memory, is the entire basis for one of the greatest triumphs in all of modern medicine, vaccination. A vaccine is really just a military training exercise for your immune system. It introduces a safe, disabled version of the enemy, or even just a piece of it. This lets your body go through all the steps of building an army and creating those memory cells, all without you ever having to get sick from the actual disease. Which really brings us to the bottom line, doesn't it? Your immunity isn't just some abstract thing. It's a living, breathing history book of your life. It's a log of every single battle your body has ever fought and won, whether that was against a real infection or in a training simulation from a vaccine. So what we have is this absolutely incredible, learning, adapting defense force right inside of us. It can remember a threat for decades. And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. Now that we're really starting to understand how to train it, what's the next enemy we're going to teach it to defeat?